march. The empire's on the run. Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
You've heard about the essential qualities of iodine when it comes to your well-being, and you've read the opinions of top experts regarding this good member of the halogen family. Still, reports indicate that iodine is absent in sufficient amounts from the daily lives of countless people worldwide. Now, our extra-strength new nascent iodine formula is here, Survival Shield X2, leading the way into the next generation of super high-quality nascent iodine. InfoWars Life Survival Shield X2 is derived from 200+ million-year-old salt solutions found more than 7,000 feet below the Earth's surface. The result is a unique nascent iodine that is both concentrated and free of unwanted additives, genetically modified ingredients, and completely vegan. We even pre-screen our Survival Shield X2 iodine for radiation. Pure, clean, and sourced from deep within the Earth, X2 nascent iodine is available exclusively at InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsStore.com, or call 1-888-253-3139.
The government's Department of Homeland Security is buying up loads of ammo. At the same time, they're restricting civilians' rights to own and purchase firearms. Can you put two and two together? Infidel Body Armor can stop every round, including hollow points and .308 sniper rounds, is reasonably priced and fully legal. But for how long? Go to InfidelBodyArmor.com, spelled INFIDEL bodyarmor.com. Infidel Body Armor. Just won't quit.
When cells become toxic, they die early and aging sets in. No one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. Just one of the key compounds, BioPQQ, is backed by major clinical studies. You want the best that's out there at the lowest price anywhere? We now have the synergistic solution. Secure your DNA force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139.
I began to get into iodine a few years ago because it was helping me and my family so much get healthy and detoxify. Most people know that iodine deficiency has been a crisis around the world. Iodine is key to so many of the body's functions, especially the thyroid. I discovered a product being developed by Dr. Group. You now know it as Survival Shield True Nascent Iodine that your body can really absorb. Then, about a year ago, he said, listen, if you think this is powerful, I'm going to come out with rare earth, deep earth crystals. And the results that I personally have had have been life-changing. Nobody else has got iodine based on these pure crystals, ladies and gentlemen. This is innovating, and the best part is it helps fund Infowars.com, the radio show, the TV show, the whole media operation promoting true libertarian ideas. For a limited time, experience the ancient power of Survival Shield X2. Take advantage of this unprecedented 30% off Super Detox Special at InfoWarsLife.com.
Take you live to the Central Texas Command Center in the heart of the resistance. It's Alex Jones.
We're back live on the Alex Jones Show. I'm filling in for Alex today. I'm Paul Joseph Watson, joined in studio by David Knight. First, I want to cover just a couple of stories here. One out of Zero Hedge. Will the Fed let the stock market crash before an election? This is Charles Hugh Smith. Anyone in their position with the tools at hand would not have any other real option other than to buy stocks in whatever quantity is needed to reverse the selling and blow the shorts out of the water. So there's speculation that the Fed could be preparing to intervene in the stock market before the election, either to cause a crash or to prevent one. We've had a lot of negative stock news over the past recent weeks. What would happen to incumbents in the election a few weeks from now if the stock market crashes? The happy story that all is well and you would be wise to re-elect the incumbents responsible for the economic good news would be reduced to rubble. So they're speculating that this could be part of the October surprise that many people have talked about, an economic panic right before the election, which could really shake up the midterms there. So that's an interesting article out of Zero Hedge, a potential October surprise in the economy. Also from Zero Hedge today, China claims US behind Hong Kong protests. A commentary in the official newspaper of the Chinese Communist Party on Saturday accused the US of trying to foment a colour revolution in Hong Kong. So we've already had claims that foreigners are behind these protests in Hong Kong. We've had evidence that the National Endowment for Democracy, as it was involved in Ukraine and many other colour revolutions, is active again in Hong Kong. But now, for the first time, Chinese state media has directly blamed the United States for fomenting that uprising as a colour revolution to destabilise Beijing, just as they attempted to do, of course, and succeeded in Kiev, overthrowing the legitimately elected government and replacing it with an EU vassal puppet state. So we're continuing to watch developments in Hong Kong. David Knight, your comments on that, and also the news story out of the Washington Post: probe of contract for illegal silencers leads to web of Pentagon secrets.
Yeah, you know, you're talking about manipulating the stock market to make incumbents look good. It's kind of interesting to me, living in this country, that it seems like every 4 years, when if there's an incumbent president who's running for re-election, we can usually see a drop in gas prices. Right now, I think there's a lot of incumbents, especially in the Democrat Party, that are very concerned about their getting re-elected. I think it's interesting we're seeing yet again another drop in gas prices, even though you've got a lot of unrest in the Middle East, which you would think would perhaps drive that up. Maybe that's just a coincidence, but this story that is up on Drudge right now to the Washington Post, it's a real interesting little bit of intrigue that kind of surfaced from one particular case, and it is mushrooming to shed some light on this secretive organization within the Pentagon. They're saying that a criminal investigation has exposed a secret weapons program intertwined with allegations of a sweetheart contract, fake badges, and trails of destroyed evidence. Now, what this is a group of about 10 civilian employees, most of them retired military personnel, in something that is known as the Directorate for Plans, Policy, Oversight, and Integration. A directorate. This kind of sounds like something out of a communist country, doesn't it? But what they did was they ordered 349 silencers, and they paid a hot rod auto mechanic in California $1.6 million to make these silencers. Now, his cost in parts was only about $10,000, so that's a pretty good profit margin. The crux of it, they say, is whether or not these silencers were properly purchased for an authorized secret mission, or were they part of a rogue operation. And they've got a former senior Navy official speaking out on it. He says, I know it sounds goofy, but it was like they were building their own mini law enforcement and intelligence agency. We've seen that before, haven't we? I mean, everything in this government, when everything is secret that the government does, and it's not just black ops, but I mean, it doesn't matter who you try to talk to from our perspective in government, pretty much everybody throws up a shield. There's no transparency, no candor anywhere. When everything the government does is secret, and everything that you do is an open book to them, that is a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe really for tyranny. They started destroying evidence, and one of the things that they came across was a stash of AK-47s, 1,600 of them. Now, of course, AK-47s are Russian weapons. They're not used by the U.S. military. And as the Washington Post points out, if the foreign-made weapons were equipped with unmarked silencers, the weapons could have been used by U.S. or foreign forces for special ops in other countries without any risk that they would be traced back to the United States. In other words, for a false flag.
For a false flag, or to arm the Syrian rebels, or even other entities. Of course, we know out of Benghazi, weapons flowed. That was hidden for a long time. It was later confirmed that weapons were being sent out of Benghazi to so-called moderate rebels in Syria. So they have to hide these programs behind this veil of secrecy, and obviously this could be another example of that.
And it was just last August that we had this report on Infowars.com. It's August 16th. Again, they were percolating the situation in Syria. The U.S. Army bought 600,000 AK-47 magazines fully loaded. The U.S. Army doesn't have any AK-47s officially. Okay, so who are they giving it to? What rebel groups are they secretly arming with that? And, of course, we know that there's been a lot of arming and training of rebel groups within Syria, because that's the next state on their list. That's what all this ISIS stuff is about, is an excuse to get into the country one way or the other and start a war. Then they can go after the Syrian government itself in the pretense of fighting the rebels that they actually created and armed and trained.
Let's go to a call now. Martin in Tennessee, you're on the air. Go ahead, Martin.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to let you know that my opinion is that the CDC is nothing more than a supposed hybridized pseudo-government entity. We should not expect anything from them. They are much like the Federal Reserve. They are part of the agenda. We should protect ourselves.
Okay, thanks for the call. We're going to go to Steve in Arizona, who says he's a fire department worker regarding Ebola training. Steve, you're on the air. Go ahead. Do we have Steve? Steve's not there. Maybe we can get back to Steve. We'll go to Kurt in Oregon. Kurt, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, gentlemen. This is Kurt. I have a statement and a question. About encryption. I'm a 25-year IT professional, and my thought is that whether it's Bitcoin or email or voting machines, there is no trustworthy code, open source, and not just transparent, and not just the algorithms transparent, but a plan to systematically review that. Because what we found with the OpenSSL virus was that it is open source and nobody ever actually peer reviewed it. Mm-hmm. And my question is really, where do we go from here? I have a lot of powerful progressive friends, and they're all in their own world and could care less about the things that we talk about here on InfoWars. And I believe the only war is the info war, and we lose anything if we lose the Constitution. We lose everything. I don't think we win the aftermath of this.
Well, I mean, we saw earlier, we covered the story about MSNBC, which, of course, is a liberal stronghold. Record low viewing ratings. You know, we get, 3 million listeners a day just on the radio show alone. So they are waking up. They are coming over to our side, and it's part of that process of losing faith in the mainstream media, which we've seen definitely over the past 10 years. So we have to judge it by that benchmark. David Knight, the point about encryption, I mean, we had William Binney on recently. He said that people who use encryption, which I do for my email, they're the ones who get targeted, but still it is a good protection, a good, at least surface level of protection against invasive spying.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, one of the things, PGP was one of the first encryption programs that came out for emails by Phil Zimmerman like 20 years ago. And the big problem was, if you're the only one doing the encryption, then you get the special attention, and they've got all the time in the world to decrypt it. You know, you can decrypt some of the people some of the time, but you can't decrypt everybody all of the time. But in terms of apathy, I think that's the greater issue. I think the apathy is the greater issue. And on this article that was linked on the Drudge Report today from TechCrunch, where they're talking about the interview with Ed Snowden, where he said, get rid of Dropbox, avoid Facebook, avoid Google. What I thought was the most interesting thing out of that article was the caption here where he says, he talks about why you should be concerned about privacy. And this is what you need to tell your friends if they're conservative or liberal and they just don't understand why this matters. He said, when you say, I have nothing to hide, you're saying, I don't care about this right. You're saying, I don't have this right because I got to the point where I have to justify it. The way rights work is the government has to justify its intrusion into your rights. And so that's one of the things that you really need to understand. And then the other thing that he said in the article is he says, we don't need to know every technical detail of what's going on in every program of the intelligence community, but we do need to know the bare and broad outlines of the powers our government is claiming they have and how they affect us and how they affect our relationships overseas, because if we don't, we're no longer citizens. We no longer have leaders. We are subjects, and we have rulers. I would say we are slaves at that point. I'd put a much stronger point on it, but very eloquent. That's from Ed Snowden. If you want to know why it matters, I think those are a couple of very good quotes to talk to your friends about. It does matter to have a right to privacy. However, I am very skeptical that there's anything out there that technologically protects us. I think we need to stand together. Primarily, we need to let them know that we're not going to stand for this. We need to insist that we have law enforcement leaders who will lock up people in the government if they break the law in terms of privacy, just like they would if they were robbing banks. I would expect the FBI director to lock up police officers if they were robbing people on the streets. I would expect him to lock up people within the federal government who are robbing us of our rights. And when he says distrust the government, but he doesn't do his job to lock up people who have violated the laws, who are criminals, he's not doing anything to make us have any confidence in this. He's just part of the problem, in my opinion.
And for people who say, you know, they don't care about their privacy, it's a complete misnomer, because as soon as you say, okay, well, give me your email password, give me access to your bank account, then they suddenly have real concerns about privacy. It's only with the government You can trust the government, apparently, to violate your privacy, but not even your closest friends can be trusted with your email password. So, again, it's a